Well, hello. So I was thinking about how the charming lie, and I just grew up around that, and just realizing now in the present how much really Machiavellian that really is overall. That the identity to just see anybody who's just like kindness, nice, those traits of whatever, just like those identities are seen as the same. Like, oh, that's a lie. As my older sibling would say, I remember he said that so many more times that that was something that he saw it as like, oh, you know, if they're that charming, they're lying. You know, life isn't like that. And now that I look back at it, it's a backhanded slap to the face for himself, like my life is horrible kind of thing. And I recognize that now. And I was thinking about the memory to my moment back to when we were kids. I remember going to the acting school when we were kids, me, my brother, my mom. And when we were going to the acting school in Hollywood, we paid for that. I think every Saturday we went. And how much, like, that memory, I didn't remember it till now. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, now I do. And then I remember the last Saturday went is the only memory I have now. But I remember the idea of it trickling in me. Like, okay, I do remember it. But it's just the last memory that hits. And I'm like, okay, we went. And the last one was the big one because it was like, okay, we went there the last Saturday, went to the building. The building was shut down completely. And they took us for all our money. We were so young back in the 90s, and me and Jax were speaking about that. 80s and 90s were big for scammers, basically, because how could you research? How could you look up things? And literally, for kids, if you wanted to get into acting, for anything like that, it was up on it. How do you know if someone's talented if you're a kid? How do you really know? You just look at someone, oh, yeah, that kid is talented. They must be talented because they're a kid. That's it. And for me, I remember what my mom said at least. I don't want to be in acting. I don't want to be that because I don't want to act. Like, I remember thinking that from back then to now. Like, I don't want to act in life. Like, that's not me. Like, this is it. This is reality to me. It's like life is not a stage. Like, I'm the complete opposite of what I've heard in literature classes. So I love literature, but in a way, I love it to hate it. So, what was that? And Space Godzilla has a question. What kind of question do you have there? Well, how did it feel when your family had that issue with the acting school, and what happened exactly when that happened? Oh, it's a great question, Space Godzilla. Thank you for asking. Well, I remember it because mom was just very angry, upset, and I think just, you know, knocking at the door, everything like that. But it was all shut down, dark, everything like that. There wasn't really much of anything she could do because, well, what can you do in those instances? What I understand now, just looking back and looking presently, is that there's a great quote that I made. Is not made. I mean, I've heard this now that I've listened to so many things that gratitude is a burden and revenge is a pleasure. And I realized that pretty much from that instance, that that's how my family got through life. I didn't, but I saw that they saw every single instance as a means to say, oh, if I can get revenge in some way, people will find me tolerable. They didn't. And that's why they were alone, and that's why they were lonely, my mom and my grandma, It wasn't because, oh, I lost somebody, feel sorry for me. No, it's because the way you treated people. Okay, there's repercussions for that. Okay, and same thing for my older sibling too. You know, I mean, eventually things will come back for you. You know, that's why narcissists live a longer life. It's because literally they have to live out their pain. Someone like myself, who's not going to admit to having empathy and all that stuff. I mean, I that's great that I have it, but I'm going to keep it to myself at this point because people have spoiled it. You know, my mom said I was a gift, all this great stuff. She didn't. She exploited it for herself. Grandma said the same thing. Great philosopher, all this stuff. Exploited it for herself. Didn't help me to explore the world with those actions. And that's an issue. You know, as a prerogative, as a parental figure, great thing to do. Give me your gestures and your maturity in life so that I can learn better and move forward with that. You didn't do any of that. At a young age, when I asked so many curious questions from Read Rainbow, if I learn more from Reading Rainbow, if I learn more from Mr. Rogers than you, there's a problem. And if you made me fear in life more than an outside gang member, then there's a bigger problem with that. And as my older brother seemed to experience weird um, things that signifies that there's gang members outside and all this, we had a horrible city or something. When I stepped outside and was able to walk from the apartments I lived at to grandma's house and had no significant encounter with anybody, no issue, what does that tell you? My brother's lying about the gang member encounters and that nothing happened in our city. So my older brother is lying. And that's great because he wants to get that sorry figure right back to him as well. What did he learn from? He learned from the best. Feel sorry for me with grandiosity and hate. You know, no matter how much people say they hate Trump, all this stuff, they would use the same trappings as Trump to be in the same position as him. Because power is power at the end of the day, as The Weeknd said, as Game of Thrones said, as all these great shows say. People wouldn't watch them if they don't want them. Like at the end of the day, I don't want them. That's why I don't watch them. Things that I want, I watch. Teddy Ruxpin, all the great things that I care about, I actually pay attention to. I have DVDs of because the true power is in how you care. So you pay attention to the awareness you want, not the awareness you say, I hate that awareness. I have to talk about the things I'm aware of now, but don't have a cow about it like the Mom Wins and all them did because they did. Mom Win telling me I'm wrong the whole time. Definitely I am wrong, but I love being wrong. I love being wrong, Atra Win, because being wrong makes me even betterly in the future, even better person now. Because I'd rather be wrong now than have to live in that past version of myself. Because that conversation has to happen at some point. Death is gonna happen, you know. And if a conversation doesn't happen, there will be no growth, you know. That's why Mr. Rogers was one of the first people to have those conversations in court to make Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, to have people on the show that never appeared before. You know, the people that step forward and have those deep conversations, the way that happened is because they actually stepped forward inside their own households to do that too. I'm willing to do that. I'm wanting to do that. I'm stepping forward to do that. But hey, if no one else is, I'm not going to be putting together the pieces. Because if anger is going to be there, hatred's going to be there, guess what's going to happen to me? It's going to get squashed. I'm not interested in being squashed anymore. Already was there getting squashed. And I think that's what gratitude is a burden means, you know. Revenge is a pleasure means, you know. that charming lie, oh, Marcello can't honestly be that way all the time. Well, of course, there's ups and downs in life. There's peaks and valleys and all that great thing, chasms that go all the way down. But if you know the honest person who they are, who's going to reveal themselves? Who's going to show their tail and tell you who they are? Yeah, I love taking advantage of people. I love it. But of course, there's books everywhere talking about it and saying we manipulate and take advantage of people, of course, but we don't talk about it. There's books about it. What do you mean you don't talk about it? That day is done. Machiavelli said it in The Prince. I mean, you really don't think people don't talk about it? But that day is done. There won't be any growth in systems anymore, in companies anymore. That's why companies are failing. That's why all these businesses are going down. At some point, there's not going to be any growth. People can't go shop. We can't grow without a conversation. If this is the conversation right here between myself, me, and Space Godzilla right here. Hello. Yeah, it's true, Marcello. It's very true. How can there just be a conversation between me and you? Space Godzilla agrees. There's an issue.